A girl in a wheelchair was shoved to the ground in front of everyone. Most students stood frozen, except one boy who refused to stay silent. What followed turned the entire school upside down. It happened in less than 3 seconds. Jasmine Ellis was halfway down the east hallway of Eastmont Middle School, her fingers pressed lightly on the joystick of her motorized wheelchair. She had science next period, room 213, top floor, and was already running late because her homeroom teacher kept her back to check in. She hated that. Always the check-ins. Like people thought her silence meant something was wrong. She was focused on the tile pattern ahead, zoning out the shuffle of backpacks and sneakers. Then, without warning, a shoulder clipped hers hard. Her chair tilted. She gasped. Before she could react, she was on the floor. The impact wasn't loud, but it was enough to freeze a dozen students mid-step. Jasmine's backpack slid forward. Her spiral notebook flipped open, pages skimming across the hallway like leaves. Someone gasped. A few laughed. And then the silence cracked. "Yo, what the hell, Tyler?" one kid muttered. But Tyler Granger just smirked. He stood over Jasmine like he'd dropped a soda can, not a person. He was tall for 8th grade, wore a grey hoodie that said "still winning," and had that expression kids like him always wore, like nothing could touch him. His friends behind him looked uncomfortable, but none of them moved. "Not yet. Didn't see her," Tyler said casually, not even glancing down. "Move faster next time." Jasmine didn't speak. She was on her side now, one wheel of her chair still spinning. Her arm was twisted under her body. Her voice stayed lodged in her throat. Someone started recording. Her lips parted, maybe to cry or maybe to scream, but nothing came out. From the edge of the hallway, near the lockers, someone else did move. Micah DeShawn, 7th grade. Quiet kid. Sat near the back in history. Never got picked for kickball. People said he was smart, but not much else. He walked fast and low, like he didn't want attention. But now, he stepped forward, his backpack slipping off one shoulder. He didn't yell. He didn't threaten. He just stared straight at Tyler. "You pushed her," Micah said. His voice wasn't loud, but it didn't shake either. Tyler scoffed. "It was an accident." Micah didn't flinch. "You looked at her before you did it." Tyler's smirk faded just a little. "What are you, her babysitter now?" Micah looked down at Jasmine, still on the floor. She was trying to push herself upright, her lip trembling. Her voice still wouldn't come out. "No," Micah said. "I just know right from wrong," someone whispered. "Oh." Phones were definitely out now. Tyler glanced around. His eyes landed on 2 kids filming near the lockers. The crowd was getting bigger. That's when he got louder. "Why don't you mind your damn business?" Tyler snapped. "She is my business now," Micah answered. Calm, solid. Tyler stepped forward, like he was ready to swing. Micah didn't move. He didn't blink. He just dropped his backpack and took 1 step closer. 2 feet between them. No teacher had shown up yet. The bell had already rung. The hallway should have been empty, but now it was packed. Jasmine was halfway upright now. A girl she didn't know was helping her. Her chair had tipped sideways but wasn't broken. Her backpack was still open. Her science book had a rip down the middle. "I'm fine," Jasmine mumbled. Her voice barely carried. But Tyler ignored her. "You gonna hit me now?" He sneered at Micah. "Come on, let's go." Micah clenched his fists, but didn't raise them. His eyes flicked to Jasmine, then back to Tyler. "I don't need to hit you," Micah said slowly. "You already showed everybody who you are." That line hit harder than a punch. Even the kids who had been smirking earlier looked down at their feet. Someone whispered, "Damn." But Tyler wasn't done. He was humiliated now, and he did what people like him always do when the spotlight burns too bright. He shoved Micah. But this time, Micah didn't step back. Micah didn't fall, not even a step. He took the shove like a wall and stared Tyler down, fists still at his sides. The energy in the hallway shifted. Not in that dramatic movie way, but real, sharp, and uncomfortable. No one knew what to say. No one expected this quiet kid to stand like that. Tyler's chest puffed up, probably hoping Micah would swing so he'd have an excuse. He took another step. But this time, Micah raised one hand, not to fight, but to stop him. "Don't touch me again," he said calmly. "We both know who you pick to mess with. Try someone your own size." The words landed like bricks. Tyler glanced around again, but now the eyes watching weren't laughing or shocked. They were waiting. Jasmine's wheelchair had been lifted upright by a kid from her art class. She was back in it now, shaking, arms tight across her chest. Her hair had come loose from its clip. She hadn't looked up yet. "Micah," she whispered. He didn't hear. "You'll act like he's a hero," Tyler barked suddenly. "She fell. Big deal. You pushed her," someone else said. It was Amber Salinas, 8th grade, school yearbook team. Blonde ponytail, braces. She was holding up her phone, recording without blinking. Everyone saw it. Tyler turned to her. "Put your phone down." Nope. The hallway was heavy with silence again, but this time it belonged to Micah. "I'm not your enemy, Tyler," he said, steady. "But you just made yourself one." Then Micah turned his back on him. He walked to Jasmine, kneeled down next to her, and finally spoke directly to her. "Are you okay?" Her eyes were still wide. "I'm fine," she said, though it didn't sound convincing. Micah looked at her carefully. "You sure?" She nodded. Slow, then firmer. Behind them, Tyler muttered something, but he wasn't shouting anymore. He looked like a dog that had bitten too fast and didn't like the taste. His friends were backing up toward the stairs, all pretending they hadn't just watched him try to intimidate a girl in a wheelchair and lose to a kid half his size. A teacher finally appeared, Ms. Carvenan, from the 7th grade math wing. She came around the corner fast, her scarf flapping like a cape. She paused, eyeing the scene. Jasmine on the floor moments ago. Micah crouched beside her, phone still out. Tyler standing alone. "What's going on?" she asked. Everyone spoke at once. "She pushed her." "No, he did. It's all on video. Ask Amber." "Micah didn't do anything wrong." Miss Carvenan held up her hands. "Enough, all of you. Phones away. Right now." Slowly the phones lowered. One kid kept recording behind his hoodie until she locked eyes with him. He turned it off fast. Ms. Carvenan walked to Jasmine. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" Jasmine stiffened. She didn't like being called that. She nodded. "I'm okay. Who helped you?" Micah stood up. "I did." Miss Carvenan looked at him, then Tyler. "And what happened?" Before either of them could speak, Jasmine said, "Tyler shoved me. On purpose." Tyler's mouth dropped open. "That's a lie." Ms. Carvenan's eyes narrowed. "We'll sort this in the office." And that was it. She radioed for assistance and escorted all three, Jasmine, Tyler, and Micah, down the hall. Students parted for them like they were royalty. Whispers chased behind them. Some kids clapped softly when Micah passed. Others stayed quiet, unsure if this was the kind of thing you cheered for. Micah didn't respond to any of it. He just walked beside Jasmine, quiet again, but different now. Like the silence wasn't just his shield anymore. Maybe it was a choice. In the front office, they were separated quickly. Jasmine was led into the nurse's station for an evaluation. Micah and Tyler were sat across the waiting area, neither looking at the other. Micah stared at the beige wall. Tyler picked at a loose thread on his sleeve. The secretary handed each of them a referral slip. The principal hadn't come out yet, but tension was still thick, and the real fight was just beginning. Micah could hear the hum of the copy machine through the wall. He sat stiff in the chair outside Principal Landry's office, legs slightly shaking, hands in his lap. His mom always told him, "When you speak up, be ready for someone to try and make you regret it." He was feeling that now, not because he was scared of Tyler, but because of how quiet the adults were being. Tyler sat 2 chairs over, arms crossed, staring ahead like he was bored. His leg bounced under his jeans. The only time he looked over was when the secretary left the desk for a moment. He leaned over and muttered, just loud enough, "You're not going to be a hero for long." Micah didn't look at him. Wasn't trying to be one. Tyler smiled, mean and thin. "You'll see." Before Micah could respond, the office door opened. Assistant Principal Delgado poked his head out. "Granger, Henderson, let's go." Micah stood, not sure what to expect. Tyler rolled his shoulders like he was stretching before gym class and followed. Inside the principal's office, it was quiet. Too quiet. Principal Landry was behind his desk, square jaw tight, grey suit wrinkle-free like always. He looked like someone who rehearsed his tone before speaking. Delgado stood at the window, arms folded. There were 2 empty chairs in front of the desk. They sat. Landry started slow. This school takes physical conflict very seriously. Micah tilted his head slightly. So do I. That made Landry blink. I see. Let me be clear. There are videos circulating. I've seen some. Mr. Granger, we saw you shove Mr. Henderson. We also saw Ms. Ellis on the ground, but I need to hear from you both before we move forward. Tyler leaned forward, all innocent. It was an accident. I didn't see her. I was trying to get to class. People were crowding. I barely bumped her. Micah almost spoke, but stopped. Landry looked at him. Mr. Henderson? She was already on the floor when I got there, Micah said. He shoved her, then he shoved me. Can you confirm she was pushed intentionally? Micah shrugged slightly. He looked straight at her before it happened. That's what I saw. Delgado finally spoke. Intent is hard to prove. Micah frowned. It's not hard when someone says, move faster next time, after knocking over a girl in a wheelchair. That made Delgado shift his weight. Landry looked at Tyler, who now had the wide-eyed innocence act dialed up. Look, I didn't mean it like that, Tyler said quickly. I was just frustrated. Everyone's always filming. I panicked. So you pushed 2 people? Micah asked. Okay, gentlemen. Landry cut in. Enough. We're going to contact your parents. You'll both remain here until they arrive. I expect no further conflict. Micah wanted to scream. Instead, he nodded. Fine. They were led to separate conference rooms. 15 minutes later, Micah's mom arrived. Chantel Deshawn walked in with her coat still on, eyes sharp, tone low. She asked 2 questions at the front desk before they even finished their greeting. Where's my son? And has anyone talked to the girl he defended? Micah could hear her through the wall. They brought her in. He stood up when she entered, and she didn't even need to ask what happened. She hugged him once, then turned to Principal Landry, who had joined them. Explain to me how my son ends up in a room like a suspect when he was the only one helping a disabled student? Landry tried the polite approach. We're trying to gather the full picture, Mrs. Deshawn. She stared. Then let me help you. My son is respectful, never been in trouble, and he didn't raise a hand until your other student made it physical. So if we're talking discipline, we better be clear who we're talking about. Landry adjusted his tie. This is about ensuring safety. No, she cut in. This is about being scared of a story going viral. Well, guess what? It already is. Micah stayed silent. But in his chest, something warmed. Not because he was glad to be in that office, but because he wasn't alone in it. But while he had someone in his corner, Jasmine didn't. Jasmine sat alone in the nurse's office, legs trembling under the blanket they'd given her. She wasn't cold. She was angry. No one had asked her what really happened. Not the nurse, not the security officer who peeked in, and definitely not Principal Landry, who'd only poked his head through the door once to say, "We'll speak soon, Jasmine." She'd wanted to shout, "It wasn't an accident," but her throat had tightened up again. It always did when she was put on the spot. The nurse offered her crackers. She said no. Then yes, just to make her stop asking. At one point, Jasmine could hear raised voices outside the hallway. A woman. Sharp. Clear, not backing down. Then silence again. Her mom, Angela Ellis, arrived 30 minutes later, breathless and clearly upset she hadn't been called sooner. She crouched down right in front of her daughter and looked her in the eyes. "Are you hurt?" "No, just my arm, a little." Angela reached for her elbow and gave it a gentle squeeze. "They said you were knocked out of your chair. You sure you're okay?" Jasmine hesitated, then whispered, "He did it on purpose." Angela stood up fast. "Okay, where's the principal?" The nurse tried to explain. "We're still piecing things together." "I don't need pieces," Angela said. "I need the full picture. Now." 10 minutes later, they were in Principal Landry's office too. Jasmine was on the soft seat this time. Angela stayed standing. She told me it wasn't an accident, Angela said flatly. Landry kept his voice calm. I understand she feels that way, but several students gave conflicting stories. Let me guess. Angela replied. The one standing with the boy who pushed her? Landry hesitated. We're reviewing footage. There are multiple angles. You mean the one circulating on Snapchat right now? He didn't answer that. Jasmine looked down at her lap. Her hands were folded tightly, knuckles white. She felt like she was disappearing again, even in a room full of adults. Angela saw it. My daughter is 13. She uses a wheelchair. She was shoved to the ground in a packed hallway, and nobody from this school has asked her how she felt about it. Until now, Landry offered a weak nod. That's fair, but we're also concerned about escalation. Another student inserted himself into the situation, and Angela raised a hand. Don't you dare try to frame the boy who helped her as part of the problem. Landry adjusted his watch. Mrs. Ellis, we're not assigning blame. We're trying to prevent further conflict. Then maybe start by holding the right kid accountable. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Jasmine finally raised her head. Micah didn't touch him, not until Tyler pushed him too. Angela nodded. There you go. That's what you needed to hear. But Landry didn't write anything down. Instead, he leaned back, clearly rehearsing his next line. We're going to have to follow district policy. There may be short-term suspensions for both boys, just until we can complete our review. Jasmine blinked. He's getting punished? For helping me? Angela's jaw set. You want to suspend the kid who stopped it? Only while we complete the investigation, Landry said. Angela laughed, but it wasn't funny. Unbelievable. Micah and his mum were still in the next office, unaware of what was being said here. Jasmine suddenly felt a deep ache in her stomach, not physical, like something was going wrong in slow motion, and she couldn't stop it. Angela stood up. We're not letting this go. I'm calling the school board. Landry didn't stop her. As they left, Jasmine looked through the glass of the main office and saw Micah sitting beside his mum. He looked up and caught her eye. She mouthed 2 words. Thank you. He nodded once, but the silence that followed told her everything. Because even with the truth, schools don't always do the right thing. Micah's mum, Chantel, sat in a plastic chair across from Assistant Principal Delgado, her arms folded and voice steady. But there was no mistaking her resolve. So let me get this straight, she said. My son stood up for a girl in a wheelchair. He didn't swing. He didn't curse. He helped her up. And now you're considering suspending him? Delgado tapped his pen against a notepad. It's not about punishment. It's about de-escalation. When there's a physical confrontation, we follow protocol for all parties involved. Micah, sitting beside his mom, stayed quiet. But inside, his mind was spinning. He hadn't done anything wrong. And yet, here they were, talking like he was the problem. Chantel leaned forward, eyes locked on Delgado. Your protocol is broken. Across the hallway, Tyler Granger and his father had been ushered into another room. Mr. Granger was already making noise. His voice carried through the thin office walls. You're just trying to pin this on my son because of the damn videos. I saw him. He barely touched her. And that other kid? The one starting drama? You should have kicked him out. Delgado's eyes flicked toward the noise. We're trying to manage things calmly on both ends. Don't lump us into both ends, Chantel said. My son's not yelling in the hallway. Micah finally spoke. Why does it feel like doing the right thing gets you in trouble? Delgado hesitated. Sometimes doing the right thing puts you in complicated situations. That doesn't mean you did something wrong, but I still get suspended. We haven't made that decision yet. Chantel took a breath, glanced at her son, then back at Delgado. You've seen the footage. You've heard the statements. If your decision is to punish Micah for stepping in, we'll be contacting legal representation and the press. Delgado blinked. That won't be necessary. We'll see, she said. Just then, Jasmine and her mom walked past the window. Chantel stood and opened the door for them. Angela Ellis stepped in without hesitation. I heard what's happening in here. You're suspending the boy who helped my daughter. Delgado rubbed his forehead. Again, no decisions have been finalized. Jasmine stood slightly behind her mom. She glanced at Micah and gave a small smile. He didn't do anything wrong. Angela pointed at her daughter. She fell. He helped. Your other student pushed both of them. So explain to me again what's under review. At that moment, Principal Landry entered the room. His tone was cool, but his collar was slightly loosened now. Stress was showing. We're trying to avoid escalation by keeping students separated for the next few days while we gather more perspectives, he said. So you're suspending Micah, Chantel said again. No, Landry replied. We're suggesting a voluntary at-home period. It's not formal. That's the same thing, Micah said quietly. Angela folded her arms. If you want to avoid escalation, maybe address the boy who started all of this, not the one who stopped it. Landry sighed, then nodded toward Delgado. We'll need some time. There will be a review panel tomorrow morning. Parents are welcome to attend. No final action will be taken until then. Micah and Jasmine both felt it, the way the air tightened in the room. They weren't being heard. They were being managed. Chantel looked at her son. We're going to that meeting. Angela nodded. So are we. The two mothers exchanged a brief look, one of understanding, maybe even respect. Micah finally exhaled. Angela turned to him and said softly, Thank you for helping my daughter. He gave her a small nod. I couldn't just stand there. Chantel looked at her son like she was seeing him fully for the first time, not just as her child, but as someone stepping into something bigger than himself. But outside the office, the school wasn't done picking sides. By lunch the next day, Eastmont Middle felt like a shaken soda can, ready to blow. It wasn't just the incident anymore. It was the reaction. Word had spread fast. Videos from the hallway were everywhere. Snaps, stories, text chains. Nobody cared about the school's official email saying there was an altercation involving students. Kids had seen it with their own eyes. They saw Jasmine hit the floor. They saw Micah step up. And they saw Tyler push him. But what they didn't see, what made people whisper in the cafeteria, between lockers, in group chats, was how the adults were handling it. Micah was out. Jasmine too. Tyler was back in class like nothing happened. Micah got suspended for that? A 7th grader asked at a lunch table near the back. Man, that's foul. Nah, another corrected. They said it's a voluntary leave. Same thing. Amber Salinas had her phone open again. She wasn't just filming anymore. She was organizing. There's going to be a walkout tomorrow, after second period. We're making signs after school. Who's coming? A few kids hesitated. Not because they didn't agree, but because they weren't sure if standing up was safe. Meanwhile, in Ms. Braddock's history class, the energy was different. She was one of the few teachers not pretending this hadn't happened. After roll call, she pulled up a stool, sat down, and looked at her 7th grade class without opening the textbook. Before we start today, she said, we need to talk. The room went quiet. I know what happened yesterday is on your minds, she continued. Some of you saw it. Some of you didn't. But all of you are part of this school. So we're not going to ignore it. A girl raised her hand slowly. Are we allowed to talk about it? Miss Braddock nodded. Yes, respectfully. A boy near the window spoke up. I don't get why Tyler didn't get sent home. Another student jumped in. He gets away with stuff all the time. My cousin had him in gym last year. He tripped another kid during dodgeball and just got a warning. A third added, he called Micah a name after it happened, right in front of everyone. Ms. Braddock leaned forward. And how did that make you feel? No one answered right away. Then a quiet voice said, like the school picks who it wants to protect. Everyone turned. It was Jasmine. She had come back that morning, unannounced. No fanfare, just rolled into class during first period like it was any other day. But it wasn't. Now she was speaking for the first time. Micah didn't deserve to get punished, she said. He didn't do anything wrong. He helped me. And now he's home, and I have to see Tyler like nothing happened. A lump caught in her throat, but she didn't let it stop her. I thought if I stayed quiet, things would be fair. But they're not. The class was still. Even Ms. Braddock didn't try to fill the silence right away. Then she said something simple. Thank you, Jasmine. That took a lot. Amber raised her hand. Can I say something? Yes. We're walking out tomorrow, after second period. Not just for Micah, but for any kid who's ever been blamed for doing the right thing. Anyone who wants to join, we're meeting at the flagpole. Ms. Braddock didn't tell her to stop. She didn't threaten detention. She just nodded once. Be thoughtful. And be safe. The class didn't cheer. This wasn't about noise. It was about weight. As the bell rang and students gathered their things, Jasmine rolled out slowly. Several classmates walked beside her now, not out of pity, but out of recognition. She didn't smile. Not yet. But she didn't feel invisible either. But even with students standing tall, the adults in charge were still hiding behind the rules. By 9:47 a.m. the next morning, Eastmont Middle's flagpole had never seen so many students. Dozens stood outside, arms crossed, signs high, jackets zipped against the wind. Some signs read, "Justice for Micah." Others had Jasmine's name, bold and underlined. One just said, "Do better, Eastmont." Inside the school, the phones were ringing off the hook. Parents, reporters, district reps. Teachers poked their heads out of classrooms while the front office scrambled to figure out what to say. And in the small conference room near the principal's office, Micah sat with his mom. He had put on his best polo shirt and cleanest sneakers. He didn't feel brave, just tired. The meeting hadn't started yet, but Chantel Deshawn was already in defense mode. Her tone wasn't loud. It didn't have to be. Her presence spoke louder than anything she said. "You brought us here to talk about consequences," she said. "But what you really need to talk about is accountability." Principal Landry, seated across from her, looked more worn than usual. His suit jacket was still on, but his tie had been loosened. Next to him, a school board rep named Ms. Gillian Price scribbled something in a notebook. "We're here to ensure student safety," Ms. Price said. Nothing more. Micah leaned forward. "Then why's the guy who started it still walking around like he didn't do anything?" Ms. Price paused. "There are privacy limitations. We can't discuss disciplinary actions taken against other students. That's convenient," Chantel said. The door opened again, and Angela Ellis walked in with Jasmine beside her. Jasmine wore a grey hoodie and fingerless gloves, her hands gripping the armrests of her chair. Landry stood. "Miss Ellis, we didn't expect you." "Well, here we are," Angela said. "My daughter has something to say." Miss Price looked hesitant. "We weren't expecting public comment," Angela cut her off. "This isn't public comment. This is a student speaking about what happened to her." Everyone looked at Jasmine. She took a breath. "Micah stood up for me. He didn't yell. He didn't push. He didn't even curse. He just said the truth. And now he's being treated like he did something wrong." Jasmine's voice didn't shake this time. "If that's what we teach here, then we're all in trouble." No one interrupted her. Then she turned to Principal Landry. "If he gets suspended, I'm not coming back to school." Landry blinked. "Jasmine, I'm serious. If this is what Eastmont calls fair, then it's not a place I feel safe anymore." Angela placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "And you're not the only parent thinking that." Silence spread across the table. Miss Price scribbled something else. Landry looked like he was about to speak, but didn't. Micah looked down at his hands. His palms were sweating. He wanted to disappear, but he also wanted to stand right there and tell them that this system was broken. Instead, Chantel stood for him. "We're not asking for special treatment," she said. "We're asking for justice, for basic sense. My son stood up for someone who needed help. If this school punishes him for that, then it's not just failed him, it's failed all of them." The room sat with it. Finally, Ms. Price spoke again. "We'll be re-evaluating the decision by this afternoon. Thank you for coming in." She said it like the meeting was over. Angela grabbed her purse. Jasmine turned her chair toward the door. Chantel nodded once and led Micah out. In the hallway, they passed a row of windows. Outside, the students at the flagpole were still standing. Micah paused. A 7th grader named Nico saw him and raised a fist high in the air. One by one, others followed. Micah didn't raise his hand. He just pressed his palm to the glass for a moment. No words. Just that. Then he turned away. But decisions made behind closed doors don't stay buried forever. By the end of the week, Micah was back in class. No official announcement. no email blast, just his name returning to the attendance sheet like nothing had ever happened. But everyone knew. They had all seen the videos, heard the whispers, watched the walkout. Tyler wasn't in school that day. Rumors said he'd been transferred to an alternative program. The district wouldn't confirm anything, of course. Privacy laws, they said. But to Jasmine and Micah, the silence was its own kind of answer. In Ms. Braddock's history class, the chairs were set up in a circle. She had cleared her lesson for the day and gave the students space to talk. No grading, no pressure, just conversation. Micah sat between Jasmine and a boy from gym class who gave him a quiet nod when he entered. "I didn't know what to say when it happened," the boy admitted. "I saw it. I just froze." Micah gave a half smile. "It's okay. I get it." Jasmine spoke next. "People keep telling me I was brave for coming back to school, but I wasn't brave. I was tired. I didn't want to let them win." Ms. Braddock asked, "What do you think winning means? Making us feel small?" Jasmine said, "Like our voice doesn't count," a girl across the circle added. "But it does. That's why we walked out." Ms. Braddock nodded. "That's right, and speaking up is never easy, but it's how things start to change." Micah wasn't sure how he felt about the word change. Nothing really looked different. Same teachers, same walls, same lunch trays. But something inside felt shifted, like he'd stepped over a line and couldn't go back to being invisible again. At lunch, Jasmine and Micah sat together for the first time. Not out of obligation, but choice. A few students joined them. Not friends. Not yet. But close enough to sit. Jasmine looked across the table. "You ever think about how this all started?" Micah shrugged. "Yeah." A shove. She shook her head gently. "No, before that. The fact that I had to be scared in a hallway just because someone thought I didn't belong." Micah glanced around. Kids were laughing, eating chips, tossing grapes like basketballs. Life moved on fast, but not for everyone. Later that day, as the halls emptied out, Micah passed the display case near the main office. It had a slogan above it in bold blue letters. Respect, responsibility, courage. He stood there for a long second, then took out a folded piece of paper from his backpack and taped it under the glass. In neat handwriting, it read, "Courage isn't loud. It's showing up when no one expects you to." The next morning, someone had added a second paper underneath, "And refusing to sit down when silence is easier." J.E. It wasn't much. But it meant everything. At the next PTA meeting, Angela Ellis and Chantel Deshawn both spoke. They didn't ask for anyone to be fired. They didn't demand headlines. They asked for policy changes, real ones. Conflict training for staff, a public review of discipline procedures, a way to ensure students who speak up aren't punished for doing what adults are supposed to do. The room was quiet. But this time, no one looked away. In the weeks that followed, things didn't magically become perfect. There were still problems, still whispers, still teachers who didn't quite know what to say. But Micah wasn't alone in the hallway anymore. Neither was Jasmine. And that mattered. It always starts with one moment. One decision to stand up, one push back, one voice saying, "That's enough." Micah didn't become a hero. Jasmine didn't become a symbol. They became what most kids hope to be, heard. And that's where change actually begins. If this story made you feel something, share it. Talk about it. And remember, the smallest act of courage can shake the walls of a system built to keep people quiet. Subscribe for more true-to-life stories that challenge, reveal, and remind us who we really are.